Rain turns the city streets into mirrors, reflecting neon signs and broken dreams in equal measure. 8-year-old Maya huddles beneath a flickering diner sign, her cardboard shelter dissolving in the downpour. The thunder of Harley engines echoes off brick walls as the Devil's Riders Motorcycle Club rolls through the industrial district, their leather jackets glistening like armor in the streetlight. Jack Reaper Morrison, 45, dismounts his bike, his tattooed arms telling stories of violence and loss. The club president, who built his reputation on fear, notices the small figure pressed against the wall. Something in her defiant stare reminds him of the daughter he lost, the family that slipped away during his darkest years. He kneels beside her, rain dripping from his graying beard. "I need a family and you need a home. But can a man who has lived by violence truly protect an innocent child from the enemies his past has made?" Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The girl doesn't flinch when Jack extends his hand. Most people do. Most people see the skull tattoo wrapped around his forearm, the scar cutting through his left eyebrow, the weight of authority that comes from 15 years of commanding men who live outside society's rules. But Maya just stares at him, with eyes that have seen too much for someone who should still believe in fairy tales. "What's your name?" Jack asks, his voice softer than it's been in years. "Maya." She doesn't move from her position against the brick wall, but she doesn't run either. "You're not going to hurt me. It's not a question." Somehow, this 8-year-old has looked into the face of a man who has killed 17 people and seen something worth trusting. Jack feels something shift in his chest, a sensation he hasn't experienced since Helen died in that hospital bed 3 years ago, her hand growing cold in his while machines counted down the end of everything good in his world. "No," he says, "I'm not going to hurt you." The Devil's Riders clubhouse squats between a defunct auto parts store and a check-cashing business, its reinforced steel door marked only by a small brass plaque bearing the club's symbol, a skull wearing a military helmet, wings spread wide beneath it. Jack parks his Harley in the spot closest to the entrance, a privilege earned through blood and respected through fear. Inside, the familiar smell of motor oil and leather mingles with cigarette smoke and the lingering aroma of whatever Tommy cooked in the kitchen earlier. The main room serves multiple purposes: meeting hall, social space, and courtroom for settling disputes that can't be handled through official channels. Pool tables occupy one corner, a well-stocked bar another, and the walls display photographs spanning decades of brotherhood, rebellion, and the kind of loyalty that most people never experience. Maya follows, Jack through the clubhouse with the careful attention of someone who has learned to catalogue exits and potential weapons in any new environment. Her thin frame swims in clothes that haven't been washed in weeks, her dark hair matted despite her attempts to keep it braided. But her posture speaks of resilience, of a child who has survived by being smarter and tougher than circumstances should require. Reaper, Tommy Chains. Valdez looks up from the engine he's rebuilding on the central workbench. Tommy earned his nickname during a 3-day stint in county lockup when he used his belt chain to settle a disagreement with 5 members of a rival gang. He's Jack's lieutenant, the closest thing to a best friend that either man allows himself in a world where friendship can become liability. "Tommy, we need to talk." Jack's tone carries the authority that has kept the Devil's Riders united through territorial wars, police investigations, and the constant pressure that comes from living outside conventional society. Tommy sets down his wrench, his dark eyes moving from Jack to Maya and back again. He's seen Jack make difficult decisions before, watched him navigate the complex mathematics of violence and survival that govern their world. But this is different. This involves something more fragile than territory or reputation. Maya settles onto a folding chair near the workbench, her small hands folded in her lap, her attention focused on the partially disassembled motorcycle engine. She doesn't fidget or complain about being tired. She simply waits with the patience of someone who has learned that good things, when they come at all, arrive in their own time. She's staying here tonight, Jack says. Tommy nods slowly, understanding that this isn't a request for permission, but a statement of fact that will reshape the dynamics of their brotherhood. The clubhouse has housed many things over the years: stolen merchandise, wounded members, evidence that needed to disappear. But never a child. Never something this innocent in a world built on the deliberate cultivation of fear. The guys won't understand, Tommy says carefully. They don't have to understand. They just have to accept it. Jack's office occupies a corner of the clubhouse, separated from the main space by walls that don't quite reach the ceiling. It contains a desk inherited from the club's founder, filing cabinets that hold records of both legitimate and questionable business ventures, and a leather couch that has served as a bed during late-night strategy sessions. Tonight, it serves as Maya's first real bed in longer than she cares to remember. Jack watches her curl up on the couch, still wearing her damp clothes, because those are the only clothes she has. Tomorrow, he'll figure out practical matters like clean clothes and proper food, and how to explain to social services that a Hell's Angel has decided to become a father. Tonight, he just wants to make sure she's safe and warm and knows that someone is watching over her. In his desk drawer, hidden beneath club documents and maps of territorial boundaries, Jack keeps a small wooden box. Inside the box rest his military dog tags, the bronze star he earned during his third tour in Afghanistan, and a photograph of Helen holding their daughter Sarah on her first birthday. He doesn't open the box tonight, but knowing it's there, knowing that he once knew how to protect the people he loved, gives him hope that maybe it's not too late to remember. The sound of official vehicles pulling up outside the clubhouse cuts through the morning quiet like a blade. Jack recognizes the deliberate authority in those footsteps before the knock comes, the kind of measured approach that social workers use when they're backed by police officers and court orders. Maya sits at the kitchen table, working her way through a bowl of cereal that Tommy prepared with the careful attention of a man who remembers being hungry as a child. She doesn't look up when the knocking starts, but Jack notices her shoulders tense, her spoon moving more slowly through the milk. Maya Rodriguez? Diane Foster stands in the doorway, flanked by two uniformed officers, her clipboard and briefcase marking her as clearly as any badge. She's younger than Jack expected, maybe 35, with the kind of earnest determination that comes from believing the system works when properly applied. "That's me," Maya says, without looking up from her cereal. Diane steps into the clubhouse with obvious discomfort, her gaze cataloguing details that will likely appear in her report. The motorcycle parts scattered across work surfaces, the photographs of leather-clad men with their arms around each other, the general atmosphere of organized rebellion. "I'm Diane Foster from Child Protective Services. We received a report about your situation." Jack moves to stand behind Maya's chair, not touching her but making his position clear. "She's safe here." Diane opens her briefcase and withdraws a manila folder thick with documents. The papers inside tell Maya's story in the clinical language of social services. Parents killed in gang violence when she was 5, 3 failed foster placements, 2 group homes, and 6 months on the streets after aging out of the system's immediate care. "Mr. Morrison, I understand your intentions may be good, but Maya is a ward of the state. She needs proper placement with licensed foster parents who can provide appropriate care." Maya finally looks up from her cereal, her dark eyes moving between Diane and Jack with the calculating attention of someone who has learned that adults often decide her fate without consulting her preferences. "I don't want to go," she says simply. "Sweetheart, this man is a stranger. You don't know anything about him. I know he gave me food and a safe place to sleep. I know he didn't try to hurt me or sell me or use me for anything." Maya's voice carries the flat certainty of experience. "That's more than I can say about some of those licensed foster parents." Diane's professional composure cracks slightly. The folder in her hands contains reports that support Maya's statement. Documentation of failures within a system designed to protect children like her. Mr. Morrison, I'll need to see some identification and discuss your background. Jack hands over his driver's license, watching Diane's expression change as she processes the information. Jacob Morrison, honorably discharged from the United States Marine Corps after 12 years of service. No outstanding warrants, no history of violence against children, no red flags in the databases that matter for this conversation, but she's also looking at a man whose arms display tattoos that speak of allegiances outside conventional society, whose address is listed as a motorcycle club known to law enforcement, whose very presence seems to contradict everything she's learned about appropriate child placement. "You're a Marine," she says. Surprise evident in her voice. "Was force recon, 3 tours in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq." The information changes the dynamic in subtle ways. Diane sees military service as evidence of discipline and honor, qualities that might translate into responsible guardianship. The police officers relax slightly, recognizing a veteran, even if they don't approve of his current associations. "Mr. Morrison, Maya's case is complex. She's been through significant trauma, and she needs stability, consistency, professional counseling. She needs someone who gives a damn about her." Jack's voice carries the quiet authority of command, the tone that once convinced Marines to follow him into situations where survival was uncertain. "Look at her file. Look at what the system has done for her so far." Maya finishes her cereal and sets the bowl aside with deliberate care. When she speaks, her voice holds the weight of someone who has learned to advocate for herself because no one else would. "He asked me what I needed. Nobody ever asked me that before. They just told me what I was going to get and where I was going to go and how I should be grateful for whatever scraps they threw at me." Diane studies the child before her, recognizing intelligence and resilience that have developed despite the system's failures rather than because of its successes. Maya isn't just surviving. She's thinking, evaluating, making choices about her own future. "This isn't over," Diane says finally. "I'll need to file a report, and there will be a hearing. Maya, you'll need to come with me today." No, Maya's refusal is simple and absolute. "I'm staying here." The standoff that follows defines everything that comes next. A damaged child choosing to trust a dangerous man over a system that has repeatedly failed her. And that man realizing he's willing to fight the entire world to keep that trust intact. The department store feels like foreign territory to Jack. Its bright, fluorescent lights and orderly displays a stark contrast to the controlled chaos of the clubhouse. Maya walks beside him through the children's clothing section, her small hand occasionally brushing against fabric with the careful attention of someone who has learned not to want things she can't have. "Pick whatever you like," Jack says, gesturing toward racks of clothes that represent normalcy, the kind of childhood accessories that most kids take for granted. Maya stops beside a display of jeans and t-shirts, her fingers trailing across a purple shirt decorated with butterflies. For a moment, her carefully maintained composure cracks, revealing the 8-year-old girl beneath the survival instincts. "It's pretty," she says quietly. "Then it's yours," Jack watches her select clothes with the methodical precision of someone making inventory rather than shopping. 3 pairs of jeans, 5 t-shirts, a package of underwear, socks, and a warm jacket for the coming winter. Nothing frivolous, nothing that couldn't be packed quickly if circumstances required sudden departure. At the register, the cashier's eyes move from Jack's leather jacket to Maya's worn shoes, making calculations about their relationship that don't quite add up to conventional family dynamics. Jack meets her gaze steadily, understanding that he and Maya will face this scrutiny everywhere they go. The elementary school principal's office displays the kind of carefully chosen decorations meant to put children at ease. Colorful posters about reading, photographs of smiling students, a small fish tank bubbling quietly in the corner. But Principal Martinez approaches their meeting with the wariness of someone who has learned that not all parents fit standard expectations. "Mr. Morrison, Maya's academic records show significant gaps in her education. Jack nods, understanding that 8-year-olds who spend months on the streets don't maintain perfect attendance. She's smart. She'll catch up. It's not just about intelligence. She'll need counseling, support services, possibly remedial work in several subjects. Maya sits quietly in the chair beside Jack, her new clothes making her look more like the other children who attend this school, but her posture still speaking of hypervigilance, of someone ready to run if circumstances turn dangerous. "What do you need from me?" Jack asks. Stability, consistency, proof that she's in a safe environment. The word proof hangs in the air between them, loaded with implications about background checks and social services investigations, about the complex process of legitimizing an unconventional family. That evening, Jack sits in his office going through paperwork that transforms his military service into civilian credentials. Discharge papers, commendation letters, documentation of the man he was before grief and rage led him to the Devil's Riders. Hidden in his desk drawer, the small wooden box holds artifacts from that previous life. He opens it carefully, his weathered fingers touching the simple gold wedding band that Helen wore for 8 years of marriage. The ring represents everything he lost when a drunk driver ran a red light on a Tuesday evening in October. His wife, his infant daughter Sarah, and his belief that good people who make responsible choices are somehow protected from random tragedy. Father Miguel Santos appears in the office doorway without invitation, a privilege earned through 3 years of persistent friendship despite Jack's resistance to anything resembling spiritual guidance. The priest moves through the clubhouse with the easy confidence of someone who has learned to find grace in unexpected places. Jack. Miguel settles into the chair across from the desk, his presence filling the space with quiet authority. "I heard about Maya. News travels fast. In this neighborhood, everything travels fast. The question is, what you plan to do about it?" Jack closes the wooden box, but not before Miguel notices the wedding ring, the visible evidence of Jack's capacity for love, despite years of cultivating a reputation for violence. "I plan to take care of her. That's not what I meant, and you know it." Miguel leans forward, his dark eyes holding the intensity of someone who has spent decades learning how to see past surface presentations to underlying truth. "You can't protect her from the world by teaching her to be afraid of it. I'm not teaching her to be afraid. I'm teaching her to be smart. She's already smart. What she needs now is to learn that not everyone will hurt her, that some people can be trusted to stay." The conversation touches on Jack's deepest fear, that his love for Maya might not be enough to overcome the damage that life has inflicted on both of them, that his own broken pieces might cut her even as he tries to hold her close. "Helen would have known what to do." Jack says quietly, "Helen would have told you to trust yourself." Miguel's voice carries the gentle authority of someone who knew Helen, who witnessed the way she balanced Jack's intensity with grace and wisdom. "She would have reminded you that love isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up every day and choosing to try again." Outside the office window, Maya practices riding a bicycle that Tommy found in the clubhouse storage room, her concentration complete as she navigates the parking lot under the watchful eyes of men who have learned to see protection as their highest calling. The Devil's Riders Charter hangs framed behind the bar, its yellowed pages telling the story of Brotherhood forged in the aftermath of Vietnam, when young men returned home to find a country that no longer recognized their sacrifice. The document speaks of loyalty above all else, of bonds that transcend blood and law, of obligations that endure until death. Tonight, that charter feels like a noose around Jack's neck. Viper Collins leans against the pool table, his massive frame intimidating even among men who have made careers of violence. The nickname comes from his preferred method of settling disputes, quick, poisonous strikes that leave opponents broken before they understand what happened. He's been circling Jack's leadership for months, looking for weakness, waiting for an opportunity to challenge the hierarchy that has kept the Devil's Riders united for 15 years. So we're running a daycare now. Viper's voice carries through the clubhouse meeting, drawing nervous laughter from newer members who haven't learned to recognize the difference between casual conversation and direct challenge. Jack stands at the head of the conference table, his position earned through years of making decisions that kept his brothers alive and free. The men gathered around him represent different generations of the outlaw life. Vietnam veterans who founded the club, younger members who joined seeking brotherhood, and middle-aged riders who have learned to balance rebellion with survival. We're taking care of our own, Jack says simply. She's not our own. She's a liability. Viper moves closer to the table, his presence shifting the room's dynamics in ways that everyone present recognizes as significant. You think the cops won't use her against us? You think social services won't be crawling all over this place looking for violations? Tommy shifts in his chair, recognizing the challenge building between his two friends. The Devil's Riders have survived police investigations, territorial wars, and internal conflicts, but they've never faced a situation where their president's personal choices might compromise the entire organization. The girl stays, Jack says, his tone carrying the quiet authority that has defined his leadership. Anyone who has a problem with that can find another club. Maybe it's time this club found another president. The words hang in the air like smoke from a discharged weapon, changing everything about the conversation. Viper has crossed the line from dissent to direct challenge, invoking the club's internal processes for leadership change. Maya appears in the doorway, leading from Jack's office, her small figure drawing immediate attention from men who have spent the evening discussing her future as if she were property rather than person. She wears one of her new t-shirts and a pair of jeans that actually fit, but her posture speaks of someone who has learned to evaluate potential threats in any room she enters. Jack? Her voice cuts through the tension like a child calling for protection, transforming the political maneuvering into something more personal and immediate. It's okay, Maya. Go back to the office. I'll be there in a minute. But Maya doesn't retreat. Instead, she steps further into the room, her dark eyes moving from face to face as she catalogues the men who are debating her fate. When she speaks, her voice carries the clear certainty of someone who has learned to defend herself with words when physical. Strength isn't enough. I heard what you said about me being a liability. She looks directly at Viper, unflinching despite the disparity in their size and power. You think having me here makes you weaker? You think taking care of someone who needs help makes you less of a man? Viper's confident posture falters slightly, thrown off balance by direct confrontation from an 8-year-old who refuses to be intimidated by his reputation for violence. You don't understand how this world works. Little girl, I understand that Jack found me when nobody else cared if I lived or died. I understand that he brought me somewhere safe, and fed me, and bought me clothes and enrolled me in school. Maya's voice grows stronger with each word, drawing strength from the truth of her experience. I understand that a man who does those things is stronger than a man who's afraid of an 8-year-old girl. The room falls, silent except for the distant sound of traffic and the hum of neon beer signs behind the bar. Maya has articulated something that the men in this room understand but rarely discuss: the difference between strength that destroys and strength that protects, between power that intimidates and power that nurtures. The vote stands as called, Jack says, his voice cutting through the silence. Anyone who wants to challenge my leadership can do it according to club rules. Anyone who wants to threaten my family can try it in the parking lot right now. Viper's eyes move around the room, cataloguing support that he expected to find, but that seems to have evaporated in the face of Maya's quiet courage. The charter behind the bar speaks of brotherhood, but tonight it feels less like a binding contract and more like a reminder that some things matter more than tradition. The hallways of Jefferson Elementary smell like disinfectant and childhood dreams, a combination that makes Jack uncomfortable as he navigates toward Maya's classroom for the parent-teacher conference. The parents move past him with the easy confidence of people who belong in this environment. Their conversations about soccer practice and piano lessons, marking them as inhabitants of a world he left behind long ago. Maya sits at a desk near the window, her concentration focused on a drawing that covers most of a sheet of construction paper. The image shows a motorcycle and a small figure standing beside it, both rendered in the bold strokes of someone who has learned to see beauty in unexpected places. Purple and black crayons dominate the composition, creating something that looks less like typical child art and more like a statement of identity. That's very good. Maya. Sarah Richmond approaches the desk with the gentle authority of someone who has spent 12 years learning how to see past surface presentations to underlying potential. Would you like to tell me about it? It's me and Jack. We're going for a ride. Maya doesn't look up from her work, but her voice carries the quiet satisfaction of someone describing a perfect day. Sarah studies the drawing with professional interest, recognizing both artistic talent and the emotional significance of Maya's subject choice. Most children draw families in conventional settings, houses with picket fences, stick figures holding hands, symbols of stability and normalcy. Maya has chosen to represent her family through movement and freedom, through the partnership between rider and machine that defines the Devil's Rider's approach to life. Maya, some of the other children have been asking questions about your father. What kind of questions? Maya's hand stills on the paper, her body language shifting from relaxed creativity to defensive alertness. They want to know why he looks different from their fathers, why he has tattoos and rides a motorcycle to school events. Maya sets down her crayon and looks directly at her teacher, her dark eyes holding the kind of steady attention that adults often find unsettling in children. He looks different because he is different. He's not like their fathers because their fathers never found a little girl living on the street and decided to take care of her. The simple truth of Maya's statement carries more weight than elaborate explanations or defensive justifications. Sarah recognizes wisdom beyond Maya's years, the kind of insight that develops when children are forced to understand adult complexities before they're ready. Some of the children have been saying things that aren't very nice. What things? That your father is a criminal, that motorcycle riders are dangerous people who hurt others. Maya considers this information with the careful attention of someone evaluating a tactical situation. She understands that her classmates' opinions reflect their parents' prejudices, that defending Jack means challenging assumptions that entire families have built around safety and respectability. My father has never hurt me. He's never hurt anyone who didn't hurt him first. He feeds me and buys me clothes and helps me with homework and makes sure I'm safe. Maya's voice carries the quiet conviction of personal experience. If that makes him a criminal, then maybe being a criminal isn't the worst thing a person can be. When Jack arrives for the conference, his presence immediately changes the classroom's atmosphere. He has traded his leather jacket for a plain button-down shirt, but his tattoos remain visible, and his posture still speaks of someone accustomed to command rather than supplication. Mr. Morrison, thank you for coming. Sarah gestures toward a chair designed for adults, but sized for elementary school proportions. Maya is an exceptional student. Jack settles into the inadequate furniture with careful dignity, his attention focused on the teacher, who has become one of the first adults outside his immediate circle to show genuine interest in Maya's welfare. She's smart, always has been. Her academic performance is well above grade level, particularly in mathematics and reading comprehension. But I'm concerned about her social adjustment. Jack's jaw tightens slightly, recognizing the coded language that teachers use when discussing children who don't fit standard expectations. What kind of concerns? She doesn't interact much with the other children. She's polite, respectful, but she maintains distance. And when other children make comments about you, about your lifestyle, she becomes very defensive. Maybe she has good reason to be defensive. Sarah chooses her next words carefully, understanding that this conversation could determine whether Maya continues to receive the educational support she needs or whether Jack decides that the school environment is too hostile for his daughter. Mr. Morrison, Maya is one of the most resilient children I've ever taught. She's survived experiences that would break many adults, but she's also 8 years old, and she needs to learn how to be a child, not just a survivor. Jack looks at Maya's drawing on the desk, seeing himself reflected in purple crayon and childhood imagination. The image represents hope and belonging, but it also represents the weight of responsibility that comes with being someone's entire world. The family court waiting room hums with the quiet desperation of broken families and impossible choices. Jack sits beside Maya on a wooden bench that has witnessed thousands of custody disputes, divorce proceedings, and the complex negotiations that determine where children will sleep and who will have the right to make decisions about their futures. Maya swings her legs from the adult-sized seat, her new school shoes not quite reaching the floor. She holds a folder containing her own drawings and a letter she wrote explaining why she wants to stay with Jack. Evidence of her agency in a system that typically treats children as objects to be protected rather than people with preferences. Rodriguez versus Morrison. The bailiff's voice cuts through the waiting room's nervous energy, summoning them to face a judge who will decide whether their unlikely family deserves legal recognition. Judge Patricia Hernandez has presided over family court for 18 years, long enough to develop instincts about which relationships serve children's best interests and which ones simply serve adults' need to feel important. She studies the case file with the careful attention of someone who understands that her decisions will echo through lives for decades. Mr. Morrison, you filed a petition for emergency custody of Maya Rodriguez. Despite having no prior relationship with the child and no background in childcare. That's correct. Your Honor, Ms. Foster, what is the state's position on this request? Diane Foster stands with a stack of documents that tell Maya's story in the clinical language of social services reports. Over the past weeks, her investigation has revealed complexities that don't fit standard categories for child placement. Your Honor, our initial concern was Mr. Morrison's association with a motorcycle club known to law enforcement. However, our investigation has revealed several factors that complicate the situation. Judge Hernandez raises an eyebrow, recognizing the diplomatic language that social workers use when standard procedures don't apply to specific circumstances, such as, Mr. Morrison is a decorated Marine veteran with no history of violence against children. Maya has thrived in his care, showing improved academic performance and emotional stability. More significantly, every alternative placement we've explored has been rejected by Maya herself. Ms. Rodriguez, would you like to tell me why you want to stay with Mr. Morrison? Maya stands beside the defense table, a small frame dwarfed by the formal proceedings, but her voice clear and strong when she speaks. He's the first person who ever asked me what I needed instead of telling me what I should want. He makes sure I'm safe and fed and that I go to school. He doesn't try to change me or fix me or make me into someone different. And why is that important to you? Because I've been broken, but I'm not stupid. I know the difference between someone who wants to help me and someone who wants to help themselves feel better about helping me. Judge Hernandez leans forward, recognizing wisdom that typically develops only after years of disappointment and survival. Maya's testimony carries the weight of lived experience rather than coached responses. Mr. Morrison, what makes you believe you're qualified to raise a child who has experienced significant trauma? Jack stands, his military bearing evident even in civilian clothes. The custody petition in his hands represents more than legal paperwork. It's a formal request for the right to protect someone who has chosen to trust him. Your Honor, I'm not qualified by any conventional measure. I don't have a college degree in child development or a house in the suburbs, or a wife who can provide the kind of maternal influence that experts say Maya needs. Then why are you here? Because Maya needed someone to care about her, and I needed someone to care about. Because sometimes the most important qualifications can't be measured by background checks or home studies. Judge Hernandez studies the documents before her. Psychological evaluations, home inspection reports, character references from unexpected sources. Father Miguel has written a letter describing Jack's transformation since Maya entered his life. Tommy has submitted a statement about the club's commitment to protecting both Jack and Maya. Even some of Maya's teachers have provided support for the unusual arrangement. Ms. Rodriguez, do you understand that if I grant this petition, Mr. Morrison will become your legal guardian? That means he'll make decisions about your education, your medical care where you live. I understand. I also understand that he's been making those decisions for months, and they've all been good decisions. And if circumstances change, if living with Mr. Morrison becomes difficult or dangerous, Maya considers the question with the seriousness of someone who has learned that circumstances always change, that safety is temporary and protection must be earned rather than assumed. Then I'll deal with it like I always have. But right now, today, he's the safest place I've ever been. The courtroom falls silent, except for the soft hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of traffic. Judge Hernandez holds their future in her hands, weighing conventional wisdom against the evidence of an unconventional success. The photograph sits on Jack's dresser, where he has kept it for 3 years, its edges damaged from the car accident that destroyed everything he loved. Helen holds baby Sarah against her chest, both of them laughing at something outside the camera's frame, their joy frozen in a moment that preceded the darkness by only 6 months. Bloodstains mar the bottom corner of the image, a reminder of the night Jack pulled it from the wreckage of his previous life. He stares at the picture now, trying to reconcile the man who posed for family photos with the man who has spent 15 years cultivating a reputation for violence. The transformation wasn't sudden. Grief and rage worked slowly like poison, turning love into something harder and more dangerous. Maya appears in the doorway of his bedroom, her small figure silhouetted against the hallway light. She has been living with nightmares since Carlos Mendoza's men started watching the school, since Jack explained that his past had followed him home in ways that could threaten their future. Can't sleep, Jack asks, though the answer is obvious from the dark circles under her eyes and the way she startles at unexpected sounds. I keep thinking about what you told me. About the men who might try to hurt us because of things that happened before we met. Jack sets the photograph aside and turns to face her, recognizing that 8-year-olds shouldn't have to understand concepts like vengeance and the way violence echoes across years and continents. Maya, there are things about my life before you, things I did when I was in the military, that some people still remember. Bad things, necessary things. But the men who got hurt, their families didn't see them as necessary. They saw them as murder. Maya steps into the room and settles on the edge of Jack's bed, her maturity unsettling in someone so young. Are you a bad man who does good things now, or a good man who did bad things then? The question cuts to the heart of everything Jack has tried to understand about himself since Helen's death. In Afghanistan, he was Sergeant Morrison, a Force Recon Marine who eliminated high-value targets with surgical precision. His kill count reached 17 confirmed, each one a tactical success that saved American lives and disrupted enemy operations. But Carlos Mendoza's brother wasn't an enemy combatant. He was a teenager who picked up a rifle to defend his village from foreign soldiers. And Jack put 2-round center mass because split-second decisions don't allow for moral complexity. I don't know, Jack says honestly. I think maybe good and bad aren't as simple as people want them to be. The phone rings at 2:47 a.m., its shrill sound cutting through the clubhouse's late-night quiet. Jack answers on the second ring, already knowing that calls at this hour bring news that changes everything. Morrison, the voice on the other end, speaks with the careful pronunciation of someone whose English is precise but not native. Sergeant Morrison, or should I say Reaper? Jack's blood turns to ice water. The voice belongs to Carlos Mendoza, the cartel enforcer whose brother died in a village whose name Jack can't pronounce, in a war that officially ended years ago, but continues in the shadows of men who remember specific faces and specific losses. What do you want, Mendoza? Justice or revenge? The distinction seems less important as I get older. This is between us. Leave the girl out of it. Ah, but the girl is the point, no? You took my family from me. Now I will take yours from you. An eye for an eye, as your Bible says. Jack's hand tightens on the phone, his mind already calculating tactical responses, escape routes, defensive positions. But this isn't Afghanistan. And Maya isn't a fellow Marine who understands the risks of loving a soldier. If you touch her, you will what? Kill me? You already killed the only person I cared about. Death would be a mercy compared to living with that loss every day. The line goes dead, leaving Jack staring at the phone like a weapon that has misfired at the worst possible moment. In the sudden silence, he can hear Maya's breathing from the next room. The soft sounds of innocents sleeping despite the monsters that circle their small sanctuary. Tommy appears in the doorway, drawn by the late-night phone call and the look on Jack's face that speaks of approaching war. Who was it? Mendoza. Carlos Mendoza. Tommy's expression hardens with recognition. The name carries weight in their world, representing the kind of enemy who doesn't negotiate or accept compromise, who measures success in blood and suffering rather than money or territory. How did he find us? Doesn't matter. He's here, and he has Maya in his sights. Jack returns to his bedroom and carefully lifts the damaged photograph, studying Helen's face for guidance that will never come. The blood stains on the image seem darker tonight, more permanent. A reminder that some losses can't be prevented and some prices can't be avoided. Jack's K-bar knife rests in his hands like a piece of his soul made manifest in steel and leather. The blade bears scratches from a dozen missions, its edge honed to surgical sharpness through years of careful maintenance. He hasn't held it since Helen's funeral, when the weight of the weapon reminded him too much of the man he used to be, before grief transformed him into something harder and less forgiving. But tonight, sitting in his office while Maya sleeps in the next room, Jack allows himself to remember what it felt like to be Sergeant Morrison, the Marine who could navigate enemy territory with the silence of a predator and the precision of a surgeon. Maya's gone. Tommy's voice cuts through the pre-dawn darkness like a blade through. Silk Jack's blood turns to ice water. He drops the K-bar and moves toward Maya's room, already knowing what he'll find, but needing to confirm the nightmare that has become reality. The window stands open, its screen carefully removed from the outside. Maya's bed is empty, her covers thrown back as if she had been lifted from sleep without warning. On her pillow lies a single photograph, Maya sitting in her classroom, unaware that she was being watched, studied, selected as a target. How long? Jack's voice carries the controlled fury of a man who has learned to channel rage into tactical precision. I checked on her at 3. She was sleeping. Found the window open at 4:30. 90 minutes. In 90 minutes, Carlos Mendoza's men have taken Maya and disappeared into a city that offers 1,000 places to hide, 1,000,000 opportunities to inflict the kind of pain that echoes across generations. Jack's phone buzzes with a text message. Warehouse District, Pier 47, come alone or she dies slowly. The message includes a photograph of Maya bound to a chair in what appears to be an abandoned building, her eyes wide with fear, but still defiant, still fighting even in captivity. I'm calling the cops, Tommy says, already reaching for his phone. No, Jack's voice carries the absolute authority of command. Mendoza isn't some street thug looking for a payday. He's military-trained, cartel-connected, and he's been planning this for months. Police involvement means Maya dies. So what's the plan? Jack studies the photograph again, cataloguing details that most people would miss. The type of rope used to bind Maya, the angle of light coming through dirty windows, the industrial fixtures visible in the background. His force recon training reasserts itself like muscle memory, transforming fear into operational planning. The plan is, we go get her back. Jack, you've been out of the game for 15 years. Your knees creak when you get out of bed, and you haven't fired a weapon in combat since Afghanistan. Some things you don't forget. Jack moves to his closet and withdraws a duffel bag that hasn't been opened since his discharge from the Marines. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth and memory, rest the tools of his former trade: night vision goggles, tactical radio, body armor, and the custom .45 caliber pistol that saved his life on 7 different occasions. This is suicide, brother. Maybe, but Maya is 8 years old, and she's in that warehouse because I couldn't protect her from my own past. Jack checks the pistol's action with the automatic precision of someone who has performed this ritual thousands of times. If I don't bring her home, what kind of man does that make me? Tommy recognizes the tone in Jack's voice, the shift from uncertainty to absolute commitment that transforms ordinary men into forces of nature. He has seen Jack make similar decisions during club wars, watched him calculate odds, and accept risks that would paralyze most people. The whole club is with you on this. No, Mendoza wants me, specifically me. This is about revenge, not territory or money. Bringing the club just gives him more targets and more ways to hurt the people I care about. Jack holsters the pistol and checks his watch. Dawn is still 3 hours away, providing cover of darkness for whatever needs to happen at Pier 47. The warehouse district offers tactical advantages to both sides. Multiple entry points, numerous hiding places, and enough industrial noise to mask gunfire from curious neighbors. Give me 2 hours. If I'm not back with Maya by 7 a.m., call the police and tell them everything. Jack. Tommy's voice carries the weight of 15 years of brotherhood, of shared risks and mutual loyalty. Bring her home. Jack nods, understanding that Tommy isn't just talking about Maya. He's talking about the part of Jack that died with Helen and Sarah, the capacity for protection and love that has been buried under years of grief and rage. The car bar slides into its sheath with the whisper of steel against leather, ready to serve its purpose one final time. The warehouse squats against the waterfront like a concrete tumor, its broken windows staring blindly across the industrial wasteland that separates the city's working districts from its forgotten places. Jack approaches from the north, using shipping containers and rusted machinery to mask his movement. His body remembering the careful patience of infiltration, despite 15 years of civilian softness. Through his night vision goggles, the world appears in shades of green and grey, familiar territory for a man who spent 3 tours hunting enemies in similar ruins. 2 guards patrol the perimeter with the casual arrogance of men who believe their reputation provides adequate protection. They carry AK-47s like fashion accessories, weapons chosen for intimidation rather than tactical efficiency. Jack counts 4 entry points, a loading dock facing the water, 2 personnel doors on the east and west sides, and a skylight that offers access from above. Mendoza has chosen his ground well, but he's made the mistake of assuming that Jack Morrison, the broken-down biker president, is the same as Sergeant Morrison, the Force Recon Marine. The first guard dies without understanding what happened. Jack's knife slides between his ribs with surgical precision, finding the heart before sound can escape the man's throat. The body settles against a shipping container with barely a whisper, just another shadow in a landscape of industrial decay. The second guard presents a more complex problem. He stands near a doorway that Jack needs to access, but his position offers clear sight lines in multiple directions. Jack waits, counting heartbeats, until the guard lights a cigarette and turns his back to check his phone. The K-bar finds its mark again. But this time, the guard's finger tightens on his radio trigger as he falls. A burst of static echoes across the empty lot, followed by rapid Spanish that Jack doesn't need to understand to recognize as alarm. Time becomes critical now. Stealth has been compromised, which means speed and violence must substitute for careful planning. Jack moves through the warehouse's ground floor like a ghost given substance, his tactical training reasserting itself with each step. The building's interior reveals evidence of hasty preparation, folding tables covered with weapons and communications equipment, sleeping bags arranged in what passes for a command center, and the smell of recent meals cooked over portable stoves. Maya's broken friendship bracelet lies on the concrete floor near a support pillar, its bright threads a splash of innocence in surroundings designed for violence. The simple beaded accessory that she made during art class now serves as evidence of struggle, proof that she fought her captors even when resistance seemed futile. Morrison. Mendoza's voice echoes from the warehouse's upper level, carrying the theatrical authority of someone who believes he controls the situation. "I know you're here. Come up and we can finish this like men." Jack ignores the invitation, understanding that Mendoza wants a confrontation rather than an execution. Revenge requires witness, requires the victim to understand why he's suffering. That need for dramatic satisfaction creates tactical opportunities for someone willing to exploit psychological weaknesses. The stairwell to the second floor offers multiple angles of attack for anyone waiting above, but it also funnels defenders into predictable positions. Jack bypasses the stairs entirely, using cargo netting and exposed support beams to climb the warehouse's interior. Wall with the silence of someone who has learned to move through three-dimensional space without betraying his position. Maya sits bound to a chair in the center of the upper floor, her school clothes torn, but her posture still defiant. Even in captivity, she maintains the careful alertness of someone who has learned to recognize opportunity in the midst of danger. 3 men surround her in a loose triangle, their weapons trained on the stairwell entrance that Jack hasn't used. "Your father is here." "Little one," Mendoza speaks to Maya with the conversational tone of someone discussing weather rather than murder. "Soon you will watch him die, and then you will understand what it feels like to lose family." "He's not my father," Maya says quietly. "He's better than that. He chose me." The distinction carries weight that Mendoza doesn't understand. Jack Morrison, the grieving father, might hesitate, might allow emotion to compromise tactical judgment. But Jack Morrison, the man who chose to love an abandoned child, has nothing left to lose and everything to protect. Jack's first shot takes out the guard closest to Maya, the .45 caliber round, spinning the man away from her chair with the finality of expertly placed violence. His second shot forces the remaining guards to seek cover, creating the chaos and confusion necessary for Maya's escape. "Run!" Jack's command cuts through the gunfire like a blade through silk. Maya doesn't hesitate. Her small fingers work frantically at the ropes binding her wrists, using techniques that Jack taught her during their evening conversations about staying safe in a dangerous world. The friendship bracelet lies forgotten on the warehouse floor, its bright threads a memorial to innocence that war inevitably claims. The hospital bracelet around Tommy's wrist reads, Valdez, Thomas, GSW, chest, abdomen, in stark black letters that reduce a man's sacrifice to medical terminology. He lies propped against sterile pillows, his breathing labored but steady, while machines monitor the vital signs of someone who took 3 bullets meant for an 8-year-old girl. "You should have stayed at the clubhouse," Jack says, though his voice carries gratitude rather than anger, "and let you handle Mendoza alone. You might be force recon, but you're not bulletproof." Tommy's grin is weaker than usual, but his eyes hold the same loyalty that has defined their friendship for 15 years. Maya sits in the visitor's chair, her small hands carefully coloring in a get-well card that she insists on making personally, rather than buying from the hospital gift shop. The drawing shows Tommy riding his motorcycle with angel wings, an image that combines childish hope with surprising theological sophistication. The doctors say you're going to be fine. Maya tells Tommy with the serious attention of someone who has learned to distinguish between adult reassurances and medical facts. But you have to rest and eat the hospital food, even though it tastes like cardboard. How do you know what cardboard tastes like? Tommy asks. When you live on the street, you try everything once. The conversation carries the easy familiarity of people who have shared danger and survived together. Tommy's intervention during the warehouse rescue saved Maya's life. But it also cost him 3 months of recovery and permanent damage to his left lung. The cops want to talk to all of us, Tommy says, his tone shifting to business despite the hospital setting. What did you tell them? That we went for a ride and got lost in a bad neighborhood. That some guys tried to rob us and things went south. Jack nods, understanding that their story won't satisfy investigators, but might provide enough reasonable doubt to avoid prosecution. Mendoza and his men are dead. The warehouse contains enough evidence of criminal activity to muddy the waters, and Maya's testimony will focus on her rescue rather than the tactical methods Jack used to accomplish it. What about the club? Viper's been handling things. Turns out almost losing your president and his family makes people remember why they joined in the first place. Tommy shifts carefully in the hospital bed, his movement restricted by surgical incisions and monitoring wires. The irony isn't lost on either man. Viper Collins, who challenged Jack's leadership over Maya's presence, has become her most vocal defender since the kidnapping. The club members who questioned whether an 8-year-old belonged in there will now understand that protecting her means protecting the values that originally drew them to Brotherhood. Jack. Maya looks up from her coloring, her dark eyes holding the particular intensity that means she's about to ask a difficult question. Are there going to be more men like Mendoza? More people who want to hurt us because of things that happened before? The question cuts to the heart of Jack's deepest fear, that loving Maya means exposing her to dangers that no child should face. That his past will continue to cast shadows over her future. I don't know, maybe. And if there are, then we'll deal with them like we dealt with Mendoza. Maya nods, accepting this answer with the pragmatism of someone who has learned that safety is temporary and protection must be earned rather than assumed. She returns to her coloring, adding purple flowers around Tommy's motorcycle wings. Patricia Santos appears in the doorway, her nurse's uniform marking her as someone who belongs in this environment of healing and second chances. She moves with the quiet efficiency of someone who has learned to see past surface presentations to underlying humanity. Mr. Valdez, it's time for your medication. Tommy's expression brightens in ways that have nothing to do with pain relief. Patricia has been his primary nurse for 2 weeks, and their conversations have evolved from professional courtesy to something approaching genuine affection. Patricia, this is Jack and Maya, the family I was telling you about. Patricia studies Jack with the careful attention of someone who has learned to recognize dangerous men, but her expression softens when she sees the way he watches Maya. The protective alertness that speaks of love rather than possession. Maya, Tommy tells me you're quite an artist. Maya holds up her get well card, proud of her work, but also seeking approval from another adult who has shown kindness to someone she cares about. It's beautiful. I think Tommy should hang it in his room when he gets home. The hospital bracelet on Tommy's wrist represents more than medical identification. It's evidence of sacrifice made freely, of loyalty that transcends self-interest, of the way love transforms ordinary men into heroes when circumstances demand extraordinary courage. Outside the hospital window, the city continues its daily rhythm of commerce and survival, unaware that 3 people in a recovery room have redefined what family means and what prices are worth paying to protect it. The stack of character reference letters sits on Judge Hernandez's desk like a tower of testimony to the impossible. that a Hell's Angel and a street orphan have created something worth preserving. The handwriting ranges from Father Miguel's careful script to Tommy's labored printing, from Diane Foster's typed assessment to Maya's own crayon-illustrated letter explaining why Jack should be allowed to keep being her dad. This is highly unusual, Judge Hernandez says, gesturing toward the collection of support letters that has grown to include unexpected voices. Maya's teacher, Sarah Richmond, 3 of Jack's former Marine brothers who drove from across the country to testify, and even Officer Martinez, who has watched their neighborhood become safer since the Devil's Riders began taking protective interest in its children. Yes, Your Honor, Jack replies, understanding that unusual doesn't necessarily mean wrong. The courtroom gallery holds an audience that would have been unimaginable 6 months ago. Club members in their cleanest leather jackets sitting beside elementary school teachers, Marines in dress uniforms next to social workers, and Father Miguel offering quiet prayers for wisdom in a system that rarely accommodates grace. Miss Foster, has your department's position changed since our last hearing? Diane Foster stands with the careful posture of someone who has learned to challenge her own assumptions about effective child placement. Her months of monitoring Jack and Maya's relationship have revealed complexities that standard training didn't prepare her to evaluate. Your Honor, our investigation has documented remarkable progress in Maya's emotional and academic development. She has formed secure attachments, demonstrated resilience in crisis situations, and expressed clear preferences about her living arrangements. And Mr. Morrison's criminal associations. The Devil's Riders Motorcycle Club has no outstanding violations with local law enforcement. During the recent incident involving Maya's kidnapping, club members cooperated fully with police and demonstrated exceptional commitment to child protection. Judge Hernandez studies Maya, who sits at the defense table with the careful attention of someone who understands that adults are discussing her future in language that transforms life into legal categories. Maya, do you understand what adoption means? It means Jack gets to be my real dad instead of just my temporary dad. It means if something happens to him, I won't get sent back to the system. It means we're family forever instead of just until someone decides we're not good enough. The simplicity of Maya's explanation cuts through legal complexity to reach emotional truth. Adoption represents permanence in a world where Maya has learned that most good things are temporary, that safety can disappear without warning, that love often comes with expiration dates, and if Mr. Morrison adopts you, you'll take his name. Maya Morrison. She tests the name, finding satisfaction in its sound. Maya Morrison, daughter of Jack Morrison, student at Jefferson Elementary, member of the Devil's Riders family. Father Miguel stands to address the court, his clerical collar marking him as someone qualified to speak about redemption and second chances. Your Honor, I've known Jack Morrison for 3 years, since his wife's funeral. I've watched him struggle with grief and anger, watched him make choices that led him away from the man he wanted to be. But I've also watched him find his way back to that man through his love for Maya. And you believe this placement serves Maya's best interests? I believe love serves Maya's best interests. And whatever Jack Morrison was before he met her, he is now a man who would die to protect her happiness. The testimony continues through the afternoon, building a case that transcends conventional wisdom about appropriate families. Dr. Elizabeth Chen, the child psychologist who has been working with Maya, describes attachment behaviors that indicate healthy bonding. Sergeant Major William Torres, routine, drives from Texas to testify about Jack's character during military service, about the man who earned his brother's trust in life and death situations. But it is Viper Collins who provides the most surprising testimony. Your Honor, I didn't want that little girl in our clubhouse. Thought she would make us weak, make us soft. Viper's massive frame seems uncomfortable in civilian clothes, but his voice carries the honesty of someone who has learned to admit when he was wrong. Turns out she made us better, made us remember that being strong means protecting people who can't protect themselves. Judge Hernandez calls a recess to review the documentation, leaving Jack and Maya alone at the defense table, while their supporters file out to wait in the hallway. Maya reaches for Jack's hand, her small fingers intertwining with his scarred knuckles. "Whatever happens, you're still my dad," she says quietly. "Whatever happens, you're still my daughter." The letters on Judge Hernandez's desk represent more than character references. They're evidence that communities can form around unconventional families, that love creates its own legitimacy, regardless of what courts decide. Maya's school award hangs on the refrigerator between grocery lists and appointment reminders, its gold foil star catching morning light as Jack prepares breakfast 6 months after. Judge Hernandez signed the adoption papers. Student of the Month, Outstanding Academic Achievement, reads like a small miracle to a man who once wondered if love would be enough to heal the damage that life had inflicted on both of them. "Maya, breakfast is ready," Jack calls toward the stairs, his voice carrying the comfortable authority of routine rather than command. She appears in the kitchen, wearing her school uniform and carrying a backpack loaded with textbooks and art supplies. Her transformation from street survivor to student complete enough that strangers no longer see traces of the frightened child who once hid under neon signs. Jenny's "Mom is picking us up for the science fair project presentation," Maya says, spreading peanut butter on toast with the careful attention of someone who still appreciates having enough food to waste time on proper preparation. Jenny Chen has become Maya's first real friend, a relationship built on shared interests in books and art rather than survival strategies. Their friendship represents Maya's successful integration into childhood normalcy, her ability to trust other children despite years of learning that peers could be as dangerous as adults. "Did you remember to pack the poster board?" "It's in my room." "Jack, do you think other parents will think it's weird that my dad has tattoos?" The question touches on ongoing negotiations between Maya's old life and new circumstances. She has learned to navigate social situations that require explanation, to balance pride in her unconventional family with awareness that not everyone understands their story. Some might. "Does that bother you?" Maya considers this while chewing her toast, her dark eyes holding the thoughtful attention that has become her trademark among teachers who appreciate students who think before speaking. "It used to. But then I realized that people who judge you based on tattoos probably aren't the kind of people whose opinions matter anyway." Jack smiles, recognizing his own words reflected in Maya's reasoning. Their daily conversations have become informal philosophy lessons, discussions about character and judgment that help Maya develop frameworks for understanding a complex world. The Devil's Riders Clubhouse has evolved into something that balances its outlaw heritage with community responsibility. Tommy has transformed part of the building into a legitimate motorcycle repair shop, providing employment for club members while generating income that doesn't depend on activities that attract police attention. Maya spends afternoons at the clubhouse doing homework, at the same table where club business was once conducted, her presence transforming the space from purely masculine territory into something more family-oriented. The men who once worried about her influence on their brotherhood now compete to help with math problems and art projects. "How's our favorite student?" Viper asks, his massive frame folded awkwardly into a chair beside Maya's homework station. Since the warehouse incident, Viper has appointed himself Maya's unofficial bodyguard and academic tutor, a role that has revealed unexpected patience and intelligence beneath his intimidating exterior. "I got an A on my book report about Island of the Blue Dolphins." Maya replies, showing him the paper marked with encouraging comments from her teacher. "What's it about?" "A girl who gets stranded on an island and has to survive by herself for 18 years. She learns to make weapons and hunt and build shelter and take care of herself." Viper nods approvingly, recognizing themes that resonate with their shared understanding of self-reliance and survival. Sounds like someone we know. Maya grins, understanding the comparison, but also recognizing important differences. Except she was alone the whole time. I had people who helped me figure out how to not just survive, but actually live. Jack watches this interaction from across the room, marveling at the way Maya has learned to find family in the most unlikely places. The men who once questioned her presence now seek her approval, asking about school projects and offering advice about everything from art techniques to strategies for dealing with bullies. Tommy emerges from the garage bay, his movement still careful months after his recovery, but his smile bright with the satisfaction of work completed successfully. Patricia visits most evenings now, their relationship having evolved from nurse-patient to something approaching permanent partnership. Maya, want to see what I'm working on? Maya follows Tommy to the garage, where he's restoring a vintage Harley-Davidson that belonged to the club's founder. The project represents connection to history, respect for legacy, and the kind of patient craftsmanship that creates lasting value. When you're old enough, maybe we'll teach you to ride, Tommy says. Jack already promised me that for my 16th birthday. But he says I have to maintain straight A's and help with community service projects. Sounds like a fair deal. Maya runs her fingers along the motorcycle's chrome, understanding that this machine represents more than transportation. It embodies freedom, independence, and the kind of earned respect that comes from mastering complex skills. The new Devil's Riders patch reflects the evolution of a brotherhood that has learned to define strength through protection rather than intimidation. The traditional skull and wings remain, but subtle additions speak to changed priorities, a small shield bearing the word family integrated into the design, and the motto, honor, loyalty, protection, replacing the previous ride hard, die free. Jack traces the embroidered details with his finger, understanding that this patch represents more than cosmetic changes to club identity. It embodies a fundamental shift in purpose, from rebels without cause to guardians with clear mission. The neighborhood watch meeting is Thursday, Tommy says, settling into the chair across from Jack's desk. His recovery has been complete enough to resume most duties, though Patricia still monitors his activity level with the protective attention of someone who has learned to love carefully. How many residents are participating? 15 families, plus the Hendersons from the old neighborhood and Mrs. Garcia from the corner market. People are starting to understand that we're not the problem anymore. The transformation began gradually, with club members volunteering for community cleanup projects and offering motorcycle escort services for elderly residents who felt unsafe walking to the grocery store. What started as public relations has evolved into genuine commitment to neighborhood improvement. Maya appears in the doorway, carrying her backpack and a folded poster board. Her after-school routine now including a stop at the clubhouse before heading home for dinner and homework. Jack, I need help with my community service project. What's the assignment? We have to identify a problem in our neighborhood and propose a solution. I want to write about kids who don't have safe places to go after school. Jack studies his daughter, recognizing the way her personal experience has developed into social awareness. Maya understands that her rescue represents an exception rather than a rule, that other children face similar dangers without benefit of motorcycle club protection. What's your solution? I want to ask if we can use part of the clubhouse as an after-school program. Tommy could teach basic mechanics, Viper could help with homework, and we could provide snacks and supervision until parents get home from work. The proposal represents ambitious thinking from an 8-year-old, but it also reflects Maya's growing understanding of community responsibility. She has learned to see beyond her own needs to recognize problems that affect other children. That's a big project. Maya, it would require permits, insurance, background checks for all the volunteers, but it's possible. Jack exchanges glances with Tommy, both men recognizing opportunity disguised as elementary school assignment. The Devil's Riders have spent months searching for ways to demonstrate their commitment to community improvement. Maya's project could provide the framework for legitimate outreach that benefits everyone involved. It's possible. But it would require the whole club to vote on changing how we use this space. Then we should ask them. That evening's club meeting draws the largest attendance in 2 years, with members arriving early to discuss Maya's proposal before conducting regular business. The main room buzzes with conversation that ranges from practical concerns about liability to philosophical debates about the club's evolving identity. Viper stands at the front of the room, his massive presence commanding attention, even when his voice carries uncharacteristic gentleness. Brothers, we've spent 30 years building a reputation based on fear and respect. But I'm starting to think that respect without fear might be worth more than both combined. Ryder Wheels Johnson, a founding member whose grey ponytail speaks to decades of loyalty, raises his hand to speak. I didn't join this club to become a babysitter. No, you joined to be part of a brotherhood that stands for something meaningful, Maya says from her position near the club charter. Her small voice carries surprising authority in a room full of men who have learned to take her opinions seriously. What do you think we stand for, little sister? Wheels asks, his tone respectful despite his skepticism. I think you stand for protecting people who can't protect themselves. I think you stand for being loyal to your family and your community. I think you stand for proving that people can change and be better than what everyone expects them to be. The room, all silent except for the hum of neon beer signs and the distant sound of traffic. Maya's assessment of their values reflects ideals that many club members had forgotten they possessed, aspirations that got buried under years of cultivating dangerous reputations, all in favor of Maya's after-school program proposal. Jack asks. Every hand in the room rises, including Wheels, whose weathered face shows the first smile anyone has seen from him in months. The new patch on Jack's leather jacket catches overhead light as he adjusts it, understanding that symbols derive meaning from the actions they represent, rather than the traditions they commemorate. The adoption papers rest in a wooden frame on Jack's nightstand, their legal language transformed into something sacred through ceremony and commitment. Maya Rodriguez Morrison appears in careful script at the bottom of the document, her signature practiced for weeks in preparation for the moment when she would legally become the daughter he had already claimed in his heart. "Dad, are you ready?" Maya calls from the hallway, her voice carrying the particular excitement of someone who has waited months for this celebration. Jack adjusts his tie, still uncomfortable in formal clothes, but understanding that some occasions require civilian respectability. Today's adoption ceremony at the courthouse will be followed by a party at the clubhouse, a gathering that brings together the unlikely community that has formed around their unconventional family. The courthouse steps overflow with supporters who have traveled from across the state to witness Maya's transformation. From ward of the state to beloved daughter, Father Miguel stands beside Diane Foster, their unlikely friendship representing the way Maya's story has challenged assumptions about institutional effectiveness versus individual compassion. Jack Morrison and Maya Rodriguez Morrison, the bailiff calls, their names linked now by law as well as love. Judge Hernandez presides over the ceremony with the satisfaction of someone who has witnessed bureaucracy serve justice rather than merely maintaining order. She has followed Maya's progress through school reports and social worker evaluations, watching a damaged child bloom into a confident young person under Jack's protective guidance. Maya, do you understand that this adoption makes Jack Morrison your legal father in every sense? That you will take his name and he will be responsible for your care until you reach adulthood? I understand, but he's been my real father since the night he found me. This just makes it official, so other people have to recognize what we already know. Maya's response draws smiles from the gallery, her clarity cutting through legal formality to reach emotional truth. She wears a purple dress that she selected specifically for this occasion, understanding that some moments deserve special attention to appearance and ceremony. Mr. Morrison, do you accept full legal and moral responsibility for Maya's welfare, understanding that this commitment is permanent and unconditional? I do, Jack's voice carries the weight of vows that extend beyond legal obligation to encompass love that has grown deeper through shared trials and daily care. Judge Hernandez signs the final papers with the ceremonial pen that Maya will keep as a memento, understanding that this moment represents more than paperwork completion. It marks the legal recognition of bonds that trauma created and love has strengthened. The clubhouse celebration that follows brings together people who would never socialize under normal circumstances. Elementary school teachers sharing beer with motorcycle mechanics, social workers discussing child development with former Marines, and Father Miguel offering blessings over a buffet table that features both Patricia's homemade tamales and Tommy's famous barbecue. Maya moves through the crowd like a young diplomat, thanking supporters and accepting congratulations with the grace of someone who has learned to represent more than herself. Her presence has transformed these men from outlaws seeking respect through fear into protectors, earning admiration through service. To Maya Morrison, Viper raises his beer bottle in a toast that quiets conversation throughout the room. Who taught a bunch of old bikers that family isn't about blood or law? It's about choosing to love someone enough to become better than you were before. The toast ripples through the gathering, voices joining in acknowledgement of transformation that extends beyond legal adoption to encompass community evolution. Maya has become more than Jack's daughter. She has become the catalyst for change that none of them expected, but all of them needed. Speech. Speech. Tommy calls out, grinning at Maya's obvious discomfort with being the center of attention. Maya climbs onto a chair so everyone can see her, her small frame commanding attention through presence rather than volume. I used to think that family was something that happened to you, like getting sick or getting hurt, something you couldn't control. Her voice carries clearly through the room, 8 years old, but speaking with wisdom earned through experience. But Jack taught me that the best families are the ones people choose to create together. She looks around the room, her gaze touching on faces that have become familiar through months of shared meals, homework help, and the gradual construction of belonging. Thank you for choosing to be my family. Thank you for teaching me that home isn't a place you're born into. It's a place you build with people who care about you. The adoption papers in their wooden frame represent more than legal documentation. They serve as proof that love creates its own legitimacy, that families form around commitment rather than convenience, and that some bonds transcend every category that society uses to define normal relationships. Maya's diary lies open on her desk, its pages filled with the careful handwriting of someone who has learned to process complex emotions through written reflection. Tonight's entry reads, "Dad says that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what's right even when you are scared. I think I understand now why he was scared to love me at first. Love makes you vulnerable, but it also makes you stronger." The school auditorium buzzes with the nervous energy of parents and students preparing for the annual My Family presentation night. Maya stands backstage, her purple dress smooth and her speech notes memorized, understanding that tonight she will share their story with an audience that extends beyond their immediate community. Maya Morrison, "You're next," announces Mrs. Patricia Wells, the drama teacher whose enthusiasm for student expression has created a platform for stories that might otherwise remain private. Maya walks onto the stage with the confident posture of someone who has learned to speak truth regardless of audience reaction. The microphone amplifies her clear voice as she begins the presentation that will later go viral on social media, reaching millions of people who need to understand that families come in all configurations. My name is Maya Morrison, and I want to tell you about my dad. Jack sits in the front row, his leather jacket replaced by a sport coat that Patricia helped him select for the occasion. Surrounding him, the Devil's Riders occupy an entire section of the auditorium, their presence both intimidating and protective as Maya shares their story with strangers. 2 years ago, I was living on the street. I was 8 years old, scared, hungry, and convinced that nobody would ever care about what happened to me. The system had failed me so many times that I stopped believing things could get better. Maya's voice carries across the auditorium with the authority of lived experience. Her words reaching parents who have never considered what happens to children who age out of foster care or slip through bureaucratic cracks. Then one night, it was raining and I was hiding under a neon sign when a motorcycle club pulled up. Most people would see scary men in leather jackets and tattoos, but when their leader looked at me, he saw a little girl who needed help. The audience listens with the focused attention that comes from recognizing authentic storytelling, understanding that Maya's presentation transcends typical school assignments to offer insight into resilience and redemption. My dad isn't like other dads. He doesn't wear business suits or coach Little League or drive a minivan. He rides a Harley Davidson. He has tattoos that tell stories about places he's been and people he's lost. And his friends are members of a motorcycle club that most people cross the street to avoid. Maya pauses, allowing her words to settle before continuing with the central message that has transformed her understanding of family and belonging. But he's also the man who gave me a home when I had nowhere to go. He's the man who sits up with me when I have nightmares about living on the street. He's the man who helps me with homework every night and goes to every parent-teacher conference and makes sure I have everything I need to succeed in school. Jack's eyes fill with tears. He rarely allows himself to shed, understanding that Maya's public testimony represents courage that extends beyond mere public speaking to encompass the vulnerability of sharing personal truth with potential judgment. People sometimes ask me if I'm embarrassed by my unconventional family, if I wish I had a normal dad who fits standard expectations about what fathers should look like. Maya's voice grows stronger, carrying the conviction of someone who has learned to distinguish between surface appearances and deeper character. I tell them that normal is overrated. I tell them that my dad taught me that love isn't about looking like everyone else's family. It's about showing up every day and choosing to care about someone more than you care about yourself. The audience erupts in applause that continues for several minutes, recognition of storytelling that has transcended school presentation, to become testimony about the power of chosen, family and unconditional love. Video of Maya's speech spreads across social media platforms within hours, her words reaching audiences that extend far beyond Jefferson Elementary. Comments pour in from foster children, adoptive families, and people who recognize their own stories of unconventional love in Maya's testimony. Jack finds Maya in her bedroom later that evening, writing in her diary by the light of a desk lamp that illuminates pages filled with daily reflections about growth, gratitude, and the ongoing process of learning to trust that good things can last. How do you feel about sharing our story with the world? Jack asks. Maya looks up from her writing, her dark eyes holding the satisfaction of someone who has spoken truth and watched it resonate with people who needed to hear it. I feel like maybe our story can help other people understand that families aren't accidents, they're choices. And the best families are the ones where people choose each other every single day. The family portrait sits prominently on the mantelpiece of their new living room, its professional composition capturing something that candid photographs had missed, the complete transformation of two broken people into a unified family. Jack's smile reaches his eyes for the first time since Helen's death. While Maya's posture speaks of security rather than survival, her hand resting comfortably on Jack's shoulder in a gesture that combines affection with absolute trust. Dad, Mrs. Richmond wants to know if you can come speak to her education class about non-traditional families, Maya says, looking up from her homework spread across the dining room table that Jack built during the winter months when his motorcycle repair business was slow. What would I talk about? About how love doesn't have to look like what people expect it to look like. About how families can form in ways that textbooks don't cover. Jack considers this invitation, understanding that his presence in an education classroom would challenge assumptions that future teachers make about appropriate family structures. His story with Maya has become something larger than personal narrative. It has evolved into evidence that conventional wisdom about child placement doesn't always serve children's actual needs. Would that make you proud or embarrassed? Maya sets down her pencil and looks at him with the direct attention that has become her trademark response to important questions. Proud, always proud. The Devil's Riders Clubhouse has undergone physical transformation that mirrors its philosophical evolution. The after-school program occupies half the main floor, with homework tables replacing pool tables and educational posters sharing wall space with motorcycle photographs. Children's laughter mingles with the sound of wrench work from the garage bay, creating a soundtrack that speaks to purposeful activity rather than idle rebellion. Jenny Chen approaches Maya's homework station with her own textbooks, their friendship having evolved from school acquaintance to something approaching sisterhood. Jenny's presence in the clubhouse has normalized the space. For other children whose parents initially expressed reservations about motorcycle club supervision, my mom wants to invite you and your dad for dinner this weekend, Jenny says, settling into the chair beside Maya's designated workspace. What should I tell her about dietary restrictions? Tommy's been teaching Dad to cook, but he still thinks vegetables are optional food categories. The girls laugh with the easy familiarity of people who have learned to navigate each other's family quirks, their friendship representing Maya's successful integration into childhood normalcy despite her unconventional domestic arrangements. Viper approaches their table with his characteristic careful movement around children's study areas, his massive presence somehow reassuring rather than intimidating to the elementary school students who have learned to see him as a protective uncle figure. Maya, there's a reporter here who wants to talk about the after-school program. Maya's viral speech has attracted media attention that extends beyond local news coverage to national interest in their story. Journalists want to understand how a motorcycle club became a successful childcare provider, how former outlaws transformed into community assets. What kind of reporter? The good kind. She's writing about innovative approaches to after-school supervision in urban communities. Maya nods, understanding that media attention brings both opportunities and risks. Their story has inspired similar programs in other cities, but it has also attracted criticism from people who believe that motorcycle clubs have no business caring for children, regardless of documented success. I'll talk to her. But only if Dad is there too. Jack appears in the program area, as if summoned by Maya's requirement, his presence filling the space with quiet authority that has learned to balance protection with permission for Maya to speak her own truth. Sarah Martinez, the education reporter, approaches with the respectful attention of someone who has learned to recognize authentic stories among the manufactured narratives that often masquerade as human interest pieces. Mr. Morrison, Maya, thank you for agreeing to speak with me. I'm writing about community-based solutions to childcare challenges, and your program has achieved remarkable success in a very short time. Success means different things to different people. Jack replies carefully, how do you define success? Maya answers before Jack can respond, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who has learned to articulate complex ideas through months of practice with similar questions. Success means kids have a safe place to go after school. It means they get help with homework and healthy snacks and adults who care about their day. It means parents don't have to choose between working and supervising their children. Sarah Martinez scribbles notes, recognizing quotable material that captures the program's practical benefits without romanticizing its unconventional origins. And the motorcycle club aspect? How do parents feel about their children spending time in this environment? They feel grateful, Jack says simply. Results matter more than reputation. These kids are safer here than they would be home alone or wandering the streets until their parents finish work. The family portrait on the mantelpiece watches over their conversation, its formal composition representing the legitimacy that love has earned through consistency and commitment. The way two people created something lasting from the fragments of their separate brokenness. The house keys catch morning sunlight as Maya turns them in the front door lock. Their weight familiar now after 6 months of living in the suburban home that represents everything Jack thought he'd lost forever. White picket fence, tree-lined street, neighbors who wave from their driveways and remember to bring in each other's mail during vacation absences. "Dad, I'm home," Maya calls, though she knows he's probably in the garage working on the vintage Harley that has become his retirement project. A motorcycle intended for weekend rides rather than daily transportation to clubhouse meetings that no longer require his constant presence. The living room reflects their journey from survival to stability. Maya's academic awards displayed alongside Jack's military commendations. Photographs from school events sharing space with pictures from Devil's Riders gatherings, and Maya's artwork covering the refrigerator like colorful evidence of childhood finally allowed to flourish. Jack emerges from the garage wearing work clothes stained with motor oil and satisfaction, his hands carrying the honest dirt of projects chosen for pleasure rather than necessity. The transition from motorcycle club president to suburban father has been gradual but complete, his identity expanding to accommodate roles he never expected to fulfill. "How was school today? Mrs. Richmond asked me to be valedictorian for elementary school graduation next month." Maya sets her backpack on the kitchen counter, with the careful attention of someone who has learned to value educational opportunities that once seemed impossible. "What did you tell her?" "I told her I'd need to write a speech about how families can be created through choice rather than accident. I told her I'd need to thank some very unconventional people for helping me become someone worth celebrating." Jack feels the familiar tightness in his chest that comes from recognizing how far they've traveled together. How much healing has occurred in the space between that rainy night when he found her shivering under a neon sign and this sunny afternoon when she discusses graduation speeches with the confidence of someone who belongs in academic ceremonies. What else did she say? She said I should consider applying for the military academy prep program when I get to high school. She thinks I have the kind of leadership qualities that would serve my country. Well, the suggestion carries weight that extends beyond academic achievement to encompass character development that has occurred through years of watching Jack balance strength with compassion, authority with humility. And what do you think about that? Maya considers the question with the serious attention she brings to all major decisions, her process reflecting lessons learned from observing Jack navigate complex choices between competing loyalties and responsibilities. I think maybe serving something bigger than yourself is what makes life meaningful. You served your country, then you served the club, then you served me. Maybe it's time for me to figure out what I want to serve. Jack nods, understanding that Maya's military interest reflects more than childhood hero worship. She has learned to see service as the highest expression of character, the way individuals contribute to something larger than personal satisfaction. The evening finds them in their accustomed positions, Maya at the dining room table, working through algebra problems that challenge her mathematical abilities. Jack reading beside her with the comfortable attention of someone who has learned that presence matters more than active intervention. Dad, do you ever miss the old life? The excitement, the danger, the feeling that you were living outside society's rules? Jack sets down his book, recognizing that Maya's question touches on themes that have defined their relationship from its beginning. The tension between safety and adventure, between conventional respectability and authentic identity. I miss the Brotherhood. I miss feeling like I was part of something that mattered to people who mattered to me. But you still have that. The club still exists, Tommy still calls you for advice, and all those kids in the after-school program look up to you like you're their honorary grandfather. That's true, but it's different now, quieter, more. About building things up than tearing things down. Maya finishes her homework and closes her textbook with the satisfaction of someone who has learned to find pleasure in academic achievement, understanding that education represents freedom rather than obligation. Dad, when I turn 16 and you teach me to ride motorcycles, can we take a trip together? Maybe visit some of the places where you served, see some of the landscapes that shaped who you became before you became my father. Jack looks at the house keys resting on the kitchen counter, their brass surface worn smooth by daily use, representing the kind of ordinary stability that he once thought was reserved for other people's lives. Maya Morrison. That sounds like exactly the kind of adventure we should plan together. Outside their suburban window, the neighborhood settles into evening routine, and inside their chosen home, a former Hell's Angel and his adopted daughter continue the daily work of loving each other into the people they were always meant to become.